discussion. We'll have Jim Watson give us a rundown about their journey in California, so folks can take lessons from that, and then we can have a discussion in the time that we have left. So without any further ado, Jim Watson from CMTC.
Great. So Matt, are you going to run the slides for me?
David, I think, is prepared to do that if you'd like.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll get them going right now.
All right. Thank you. So first of all, I'm not sure I can compete with NATO. So just so you know, a little bit about my background. I've been at CMTC for 22 years, and I've been here through 9/11, the Great Recession, pandemic, all of it, which has been a very difficult time for manufacturers and a very difficult time for a lot of centers as well. So I'm hoping for the future holding a lot more in positive approaches to manufacturing than it has in the past. So I thought I'd start a little bit with the demographics of our state. We are the largest manufacturing state in the nation. We've got 37,000 manufacturers, and they employ about 1.3 million workers in the state. And like all of the other states, 75% of our manufacturers are less than 20 employees. And so as a result, that's why the MEP exists. These are establishments that are very hard to find, and they're working in the business and on the business. And so this is something that I feel very strongly about, and that's why I've spent 22 years at this. And before I came here, I worked in a small manufacturer, so I know the plight of a small manufacturer, and that's why I feel so passionate about working here at CMTC. Next slide, please. So who we are, we're a 501c3. We've been around now for 30 years. As many of you know, there's a number of different types of MEPs. There's those that are housed in universities. There's those that are housed in economic development departments of the state. But most of the MEPs across the nation are 501c3s, like CMTC. The next two slides are really just a testament to the fact that we are in lockstep with the MEP program, in the sense that they want to be the go-to organization for the go-to program for manufacturing. We want to be the go-to organization. And lastly, over the years, I think we've built ourselves up as the trusted advisor for manufacturers in our state. We really don't have shareholders, and we really focus only on the customer. So could you go back a slide? You're moving faster than I can talk. So anyway, this is just, as all of you know, there's 51 MEPs, and there's a lot of diversity in the system. There's a lot of different business models. Some deliver their services with internal resources, some with external resources. At CMTC, we deliver most of our services with external resources. And like all of the other MEPs, we are really a public-private partnership. And without partnerships, we really could not cover the state. We really couldn't serve as many manufacturers as we serve, and we certainly couldn't advocate for manufacturing without all of our partners. Next slide, please. So what's unique about CMTC in our state, and what really turns out to be our go-to value proposition? First of all, I think in most cases, nothing really goes on in the state unless CMTC or someone from CMTC is at the table. So I think we are building our reputation as the premier organization serving the manufacturing community. I think we work with about 1,000 manufacturers a year, and so and we do several studies a year on client satisfaction and needs analysis for manufacturers. So I think we really do understand the unique needs and challenges of the California manufacturer. We deliver a broad array of services. In the beginning, we were lean quality, and now we've expanded to a full suite of services and can pretty much handle just about anything, any challenge a manufacturer might have. We do offer incentives. As you know, small manufacturers don't have a lot of money, and so they need to have affordable services. And we have incentives for training and for project work that allows us to offset some of the costs, so it's affordable for small manufacturers. And then lastly, in our state, we're the only program that is really surveyed by a third party to measure both our impact and the customer value of the work that we do. Next slide, please. So this is the partnership slide, and back in 2016 when MEP decided they wanted to have one MEP per state. We really needed to develop a proposal that encapsulated the whole state. We had been an MEP that served Southern California since our inception. And even though 65 to 70% of the manufacturers are in Southern California, 30% of them are in Northern California. And we needed to find a way to be able to serve those manufacturers, and particularly in the rural areas of Northern California. So we started the California Manufacturing Network, which is a collaborative of community colleges and associations and universities and everything to help us serve as many possible manufacturers as we can. And if you look over to the left, we've divided the state into 9 regions. And if you notice, we have really a lot of partners in each one of those 9 regions. We do leverage those local partnerships to deliver services. And right now, in terms of impact, the California manufacturer in our surveys annually deliver about 25% of our impact and about 32% of our penetration for manufacturers within California. Next slide, please. So this is our impact. We just developed a couple of weeks ago. We put this together from the surveys that we experienced from January through October. Again, we almost served 1,200 manufacturers. The big deal on here is jobs impacted, the 8188. That translates with the multiplier to another 20,000 non-manufacturing jobs in our state as well. The $820 million in total sales, that's down a little bit from last year, in which we exceeded $1 billion. So that was in the sense that we had CARES Act funds and we were able to serve more manufacturers in 21 and 22. And that allowed us to have higher impacts during that period of time, but we're still kind of proud of $820 million of total sales and $300 million of investments and $124 million of cost savings. Next slide, please. So this is the beginning of our services. And these are the tops. These are probably we have more projects in these 3 service suites than any of our other services. And this is probably typical of most MEPs across the nation. Every manufacturer wants to grow their business. And so we have a suite of marketing and website development programs to help them out. We are in a very high cost state. And so we work very hard on our lean manufacturing to try and keep costs down to improve their throughput and improve productivity. And then on the quality side, we have a lot of aerospace and defense in our state, a lot of automotive in our state. So quality is really, really important to those suppliers in the state of California. Next slide. We have developed other services. Our workforce development program is really built around incumbent worker training. We have a practice that does nothing but IT. We have several consultants that work in the ERP system selection and implementation. Greg Profizich heads up our advanced manufacturing technology program, specifically around robotics, smart manufacturing. And we do a lot of factory automation through our advanced manufacturing technology group. And then lastly, as a result of the pandemic, I think most MEPs got pretty good about supplier scouting. We did too. We had a matchmaking portal on our website that allowed companies who needed parts to go on to that portal and find a manufacturer who could supply that part for them. Next slide. The last 2 we have is strategic growth and risk management. Strategic growth is a tough one for small manufacturers. Again, like I mentioned, they work in the business, not on it. So getting them to focus on the long range is something we've been trying to do over the last couple of years. We have a number of CEO peer councils out there that we work together that allow CEOs to share their issues, challenges, and solutions. And then on the risk management side, our biggest service under risk management resilience is our cyber physical security practice. Next slide. In that practice, we have 6 people. They're dedicated, they're all internal resources, none of them are third parties. And we've divided our cybersecurity practice into 4 areas. Some of them are industry sector specific, some of them are not. Our cyber compliance obviously is defense. It's wrapped around CMTC and 800-171. Operational security is the whole idea that as more automation is being integrated into manufacturing, there needs to be some integrity around the operation of that equipment. And so we work with them on making sure that the integrity of that equipment is secure. Also, what all of us deal with is cybersecurity resiliency, ransomware, hacking, insider threats. We get it every day at CMTC. Manufacturers get it every day at their locations as well. And then lastly, managing your IT provider. Most small manufacturers obviously are going to use an IT provider if they're going to look at their server or firewalls. We work with them on how to manage an IT provider and how to make sure there's total transparency and you are looking at the right things as the IT provider is working within your organization. Next slide. Questions?
So Jim, Nancy Gilbert at EDA had a question about, I think it was on your metrics slide, about what you meant by jobs impacted.
There's two parts of the job impacted. There's job creation and jobs retained. And so we put those both together to create jobs impacted. So most jobs in the last couple of years have been jobs retained. Obviously, it's been very difficult to hire in the manufacturing space. But we add those two together because really nobody really, when we're sitting down talking about jobs, very few people ask us the difference between the two, and thank you for asking. But in recent years, the retained jobs has been significantly higher than created jobs, where in past years, created jobs and retained jobs were on an equal footing. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you so much. That's great. I'm thinking about that, Matt, in terms of the measures and metrics and all of that, just making, keeping an eye on same language and things like that. That's really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, that's for sure. And Jim, you know that we're working on this manufacturing community ecosystem metrics project, and basically trying to help regional leaders like those on the call here, do a gap analysis about how to strengthen their manufacturing ecosystem in the 6 areas that we've identified going back to the IMCP initiative. 1, workforce and training, 2, supply chain support, all the way through, to capital access and operational improvement. So we have a lot of federal agency BFFs as a part of that effort, and others. We are doing a series of these roadshows around the country. We started in Utah, and we had a great kind of a feedback loop session in Utah with the manufacturing community workforce stakeholders there to develop, to get feedback on what this national effort is coming up with so far. So let's see, we have another question came in here from the HEWAT from the Department of Defense. How do you calculate cost savings, Jim?
Yeah, there's a number of ways we do. First of all, the idea of lean is essentially, if you look at our suite of services, the one that drives the most cost savings is lean. And that's where we go into the operation and remove all the non-value add activity and reduce the cost per widget produced. A lot of it is labor efficiency. We try not to get into labor savings because our job is not to go out and muster people out of the organization. Our job is to go out and make them more efficient. So we really do look at those areas within the operation that reduce the cost per widget produced. We also have an energy program that also works on energy intensity, that looks at when you're into increasing the productivity of an organization, you're also increasing the energy use as well. And so we're able to calculate that.
Kind of a related question comes in from Leif Olson at the Center for Regional Economic Competitiveness, Jim, on that cost savings. How do you isolate the impact?
Yeah, that's a very good question. After each one of our projects, we have an engagement closeout report. And that engagement closeout report ties the projected impacts to the project that we did. So in the beginning, there's an ROI. At the end, there is a discussion with the manufacturer as to what they anticipate as a result of the work we've done in terms of the savings they're going to have, their throughput, all kinds of things. And that's where we get most of the advance notice on impacts in the work that we've done is through our engagement closeout reports.
Hey, Jim, I was curious, it's Kevin Ross from Accenture. How do you, are you doing like matchmaking between like federal and state resources to help these smaller manufacturers kind of implement some of these services that they might otherwise not have access to?
Well, we do work with DoD, and we work with DoD in terms of predominantly cybersecurity to make sure that they have affordable services to be able to start or begin the journey for CMMC. As you know, the small manufacturer is the one that is I don't want to say they've been resistant. They haven't focused on it. And so the Department of Defense through the state of California has, and its OLDCC we're working with funds to improve the cybersecurity resiliency of small and medium-sized manufacturers. And in some cases, those funds are used to offset the cost of it, so it's affordable for the small manufacturer.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Jim,
Thank
this is Kayla from Polaris MEP. I just wanted to let everyone know that, kind of give a shout out to your cybersecurity team. Polaris MEP looked at a bunch of different resources, knowing that we were never going to be able to scale up. And CMTC's team is absolutely incredible and crucial to Rhode Island manufacturers' success when it comes to cybersecurity and adhering to NIST 800-171 standards. So thank you so much for everything that your team does. We've had several successful projects, and I cannot wait to continue offering those solutions to our manufacturers here in Rhode Island.
Thanks, Kayla. And also thank you for the endorsement for another MEP center we're going to work with as well. So thank you.
Yeah, which is a nice transition, Kayla. Thanks for speaking up. Jim and I, we were talking about putting on this spring a longer webinar about cybersecurity. And it begs the question, with a lot of the resources, that Jim already has put together on cybersecurity, that's good. But I wanted to put it out to the community here and ongoing as we develop this webinar. Let us know, what do you want to see? What would help, like in your jurisdiction, Kayla? CMTC's tools are good. What else would manufacturers benefit from in the cybersecurity space? Like, who do they want to hear from? Yeah. Is any come to mind, Kayla? I'm throwing that out now. Just kind of, yeah.
Oh, no, and not right off the bat. I definitely will think about that question further. But again, like, their team is so complete with what they do. They have specialists in each area. So every obstacle that one of our manufacturers has come across, their team has been there to, they brought in a new resource or somebody. And like Jim said, they're all CMTC employees, which is even better. I work a lot. I'm the third-party program manager for Polaris MEP, so I work a lot with third parties. But in this space, I found that there's a bunch of snakes in the water, and it's really hard. And they're always trying to sell more and do things. And what's amazing about CMTC is that they have very incredible specialists in each area of cybersecurity, and they don't sell you anything. They're really there to support our manufacturers to the best of their abilities, and make sure that manufacturers have everything that they need. So I have yet to come across anything that they don't do for me. I'll keep my ear out on that one.
Great. Well, that's
I think if you had to rate the which services we actually deploy the most, the cyber compliance and the cyber resiliency is the two that are right at the top of the list. We're starting to do a lot more in operations security as more automation is being integrated. We're finding that there's a lot more threats in terms of the integrity of how that automation operates. And then secondly, as people are beginning to mitigate some of the issues that we're finding for them through an IT provider, they really do need some direction on how to oversee. And sometimes we do the project management for them, in the sense that that it goes smoothly and the end result is exactly what they expected.
Yeah, so thanks again. Thanks in advance, Jim, for the cooperation on this future webinar. I think there's as Kayla pointed out, there's a strong appetite for getting the good content shared. I was interested, Jim. We only have a few more minutes here, but you had the slide there that was talking about your one of the hard things is to help small and medium-sized manufacturers and strategic growth. Can you say a little bit more about that, right? So we're in this competition with China, and we're going to need to strengthen our whatever 300,000 manufacturers around the country to get into the game and to grow in the areas that we need to grow. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, and I think it's improving somewhat because I think for the most part, suppliers are going to have to scale their business if we're going to bring anything back on shore again. And one of the things they're going to have to do, scaling your business is not something you wake up one day and say, hey, look, I want to double my ability on my throughput. You've really got to work on it and develop a plan. So we're seeing more and more manufacturers kind of raise their head up and go, wait a minute here. There's going to be a lot of opportunity in the supply chain. How am I going to possibly take advantage of that? What's my path forward to be able to develop a facility here that can do 25-30% more than we're doing today? Without the ability to do that, it doesn't make any sense. And we're not going to be able to bring anything back on shore if there's no supply chain that can scale. So I think that's beginning to change a little bit. And with it comes the financial training, because in order to scale the business, you've got to have access to capital. In some cases, they have a very difficult time financing out of their own operational profits. So as we're doing more strategy, that's leading to more automation, that's leading to more financials. So it's all kind of going hand in hand, because we're trying to develop roadmaps for them to move from where they are today to where they need to be in order to take advantage of what's out there in terms of growth on bringing products back to the U.S. And we're seeing it already. I mean, even though California is a high-cost state, there's a lot of work that's coming back to the States, and those suppliers are scrambling to try and be ready to take care of it.
Jim, can't thank you enough for coming on, and of course your ongoing participation in AMCC. We've got a lot of good things going. I dropped into the chat just now the registration for tomorrow's webinar on supply chains with so many. I don't know, Buckley, you're going to be on that. Do you want to preview that that webinar? Buckley, you're on mute there.
I guess you can't just hit the microphone and have it go. So we're going to have 3 different experts looking at the supply chain issue from 3 different perspectives, and give everybody a little bit of information that they can deal with as we all try to improve the reshoring, as Jim was just talking about. That's a huge challenge, a huge opportunity. And there are some things we can do in the short term, but there's also a lot of hard work to be done in the long term to really have an effective transition. So should be a good session.
Great, thanks, Buckley. Appreciate that, and thanks everyone. We have a couple more minutes. Any announcements people want to make? Observations? We like to keep on time, 30 minutes every week, but this would be a good opportunity. We have our BFFs, Brian Parker, Economic Development Administration. Anything to report from there?
Nothing new for us. Basically, we've gotten our funding, and we're looking forward to putting out some notices of funding opportunities soon. So stay tuned.
What would that program be for there, Brian?
Well, I know that one we can expect would be for the Build to Scale program. And then there's some funding for the disaster supplementals. So those are on the horizon.
Great. Thanks, Brian. And thank you to all of our communities and our BFFs. That wraps up today's edition of our weekly national AMCC call. Have a great week, everyone. Thanks again, Jim.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate the welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.